Good morning, everybody. My name is Barry Schwartz, and this is the Search Buzz video recap. Today is Friday, January 15th, and this is the search news we covered over at the Search Engine Roundtable at seroundtable.com. A lot to discuss. One is Google confirmed that they launched what's called Subtopic systems, which is kind of around rankings back in mid-November. Get more into that later. Google may have released an algorithm update around January 12th or so this week. Google's Smith research paper is out, and Google is not using it currently in production, and a bunch of SEO related Search Console updates for you to talk about, and plus a lot more. Also, this week's video is sponsored by SEMrush, or SEMrush as they're now known with their new brand, so definitely check them out. Thank you for sponsoring. So first up, Glenn Gay was able to get Danny Sullivan of Google to confirm that Google has released what they call Subtopic systems. It's kind of around Google being able to better understand subtopics around the specific interest, which helps them deliver greater diversity of content when you search for something broad. And the Google example given is if you search for, let's say, home exercise equipment, Google can now understand relevant subtopics such as budget equipment, premium picks, or small space ideas, or show a wider range of content for you in the search results page. And Danny Sullivan also explained this week that subtopics don't look any different. They don't change any in terms of the search snippet results themselves, but they broaden the diversity of the content that's displayed in the search results when it's useful. And Danny Sullivan said that this launched in mid-November. Not like we didn't notice. We did post about unconfirmed updates on November 5th, which is not mid-November, November 11th, which is kind of mid-November, the 17th and 18th we posted about, and also on the 25th. So it's definitely possible. I don't think passage indexing or passage ranking, whatever you want to call it, is live yet as well, but we will confirm with Google when that goes live. But this was announced in conjunction with the passage ranking stuff, this subtopic ranking, which I like to call it, but Google's calling it subtopic systems. So definitely that's interesting to see from Google. Google also seems to have launched a smaller, or maybe not so small, Google algorithm update, ranking update around January 12th. We saw some chatter on 10th, later in the 10th, maybe some on the 11th, and it kind of spiked on the 12th. We definitely see some ranking changes, both in terms of chatter and in terms of the ranking tools. So Rank Ranger, SEMrush, Cognitive SEO, even Mozcast, they all show significant changes. I'll show you some of the charts in this video. There was some speculation around a new research paper called Smith. Smith is basically the next version, if you want to call it that, of RankBrain, which is the next version of BERT, which is now the next version now of Smith. It's not live. Google's not using it. How Smith is kind of different is that while BERT and RankBrain maybe could isolate specific words or maybe a sentence or so in terms of analyzing that and doing better with search and understanding that content, Smith could actually do a paragraph or two. So it's actually able to process a lot more content. So I asked Danny Sullivan, there's a lot of talk and chatter about this. There's a story on some major news publications like The Guardian, I believe, and The Verge or in some other places, as well as covered in other places. And it seems like just people think, oh, Google, there's an article about it or a researcher paper about it. And as Matt Cutts said back in early 2000s or 2010 or something like that, just because Google has a research paper or a patent about some sub-ranking system, it doesn't mean that Google's using it in production. So I asked Danny Sullivan, is Google using this in production? He said, no, they're not. He basically said, we publish a lot of papers about things not used in search. I won't be making a habit of confirming each one some might speculate about, but it's time consuming and more important, we tend to proactively talk about this stuff already. So basically said, that being said, no, we did not launch Smith in production. Will it come? Maybe. But right now, Smith is not something that Google uses in production. You can definitely take a look at it. It's very interesting, but it's not something you necessarily need to worry about. Even if it was live, you don't really need to worry about BERT or RankBrain. All right. That being said, Google Search Console launched a bunch of new things. The first thing I wanted to discuss is that for publishers like Search Engine Roundtable, if you're in Google News, you could get a new performance report in Google Search Console. Under performance in Search Console, I'll show you a screenshot. There's now search results, there's Discover, and if you're a Google News publisher, Google News. And it gives you not query data because obviously news.google.com doesn't necessarily show you just queries. They just have a listing of articles. You can query to get more information, but Google's not showing you query data. They're showing you pages, countries, devices, the dates. They're showing you all the segmentations around those features by date, by device, by country, by whatever. And it's cool because obviously news is generally short-lived, so you can actually click into a specific URL and see, oh, it spiked on this date and that date and died, and maybe it spiked again later. But usually it's like a 1 day or 2 day spike, which is pretty cool to see. So definitely check out that new report if you have any news publishers as clients. Google also in Search Console launched a revised update to the index coverage report. Now that update shows you very much more specific categories. They're getting rid of the crawl anomalies section because that really didn't show you much. It didn't show you enough information. Now they have more fine-grained status and categories, which is pretty cool. Definitely take a look at that. A lot of things around soft 404 is changing up. There's a lot of things around various messages changing up. So definitely take a look at that. That happened this week. Also, I think the validate fixed thing is fixed officially, but that came with the coverage report, which we discussed a couple weeks ago. Google's URL inspection tool, I think this is new. Glenn Gabe and somebody named Amy, I'm not sure what her last name is, said basically it seems like when you plug in a URL into the URL inspection tool, there's a section in there under the coverage section which shows you where Google found that page, calling the referring page. Now it's referring pages. Basically, Google could show you 1, 2, 3, 4, or more multiple sources where it found that page. Usually it's from an RSS feed or an XML sitemap, but it could be from another page on the internet, usually within your own website. So now Google's showing multiple pages in the referring page in the URL coverage report, which is pretty cool. URL inspection tool, which is pretty cool. Google Search Console is now also sending notifications for when a site has been moved over to crawling mostly over HTTP2. So back in, I think, October and November, Google announced that they're able to crawl sites over HTTP2. It could become more efficient and cost-effective for your site if Google is crawling over HTTP2 because it uses less requests to actually access the site. But again, it's not a ranking factor, so don't worry about that. But now Google will actually notify some webmasters and site owners via Search Console if and when that site has been started to be crawled by Googlebot over HTTP2. Google also is notifying Search Console owners that they should switch over to the domain properties verification method as opposed to the URL or other methods of verification. They're kind of pushing out marketing pitches. One is saying you're missing X percent of your queries by not doing this, by not verifying your domain name over domain properties. And others are saying, wouldn't it be easier if you had to be able to check everything instead of switching between HTTP versus HTTPS versus WWW versus non-WWW versus mobile or whatever? Now everything, the beauty of domain properties is everything is under one specific category. You see it all for HTTP versus HTTPS and so forth. But at the same time, most SEOs I know like to verify not just domain properties, but every other property as well. So if you do need to dig into the HTTP versus HTTPS, you could do so. Google also is getting rid of the old Google Disavow tool. That officially was, the new Disavow tool was officially launched a couple months ago, I think 2 or 3 months ago. And now, I think it was now Google's saying that the old Disavow tool will go away on January 19th. I don't think you're missing anything by the old Disavow tool going away. The new one is just as good and even better, actually. Google's Martin Splitt said it's just an experiment for them to actually go ahead and show the page experience or Core Web Vitals icon label indicator in the search results. We covered that indicator a while back, and it says Google might not even launch it. So stop freaking out about it. We'll see it if we see it. Google has explained in detail why some sites that perform or offer bad SEO practices actually rank well for some queries. And I'm not going to go into all the details, but in short, he said a site doesn't need to do everything right to do everything to rank well. Google has many algorithms to evaluate the site, so some algorithms they may do well with, some they may do bad with. Google often ignores bad things like bad links. Larger picture for sites are often more important over the long term. Focus on your overall value to your users and ask your users if they like your site. If you want to dig into more about this, it's pretty cool to see John Mueller dig deeper into this topic. Google is counting links on no index pages? Maybe. We've had Gary say that Google may go ahead and count those links, and we had John say they may not. Gary said back in 2020, just a couple months ago, actually in December 2020, something with Noindexed will never reach our serving index, but we may have fetch copies for things like the link graph calculation. So even if it might not have been indexed or not be served up by Google searches, it is indexed, but it might not be searched up by Google, meaning it might not be served in the Google search results. They may use it for the link graph. And John Mueller said in 2019, November, a year before that, that if one side of the link is gone, so page A links to page B, and either page A has a no index or page B has a no index, then that drops out of link graph. So he said ignore it. And then John was asked, why is there a conflict? He said, it depends. So keep it at that. I posted a example of the Google tool showing that it's kind of, so the URL inspection tool shows that the canonical URL is some mirror site. So you've seen this before where a site could copy another site exactly, the logo, every single content, every URL, but change the domain name. So instead of Search Engine Roundtable having all its content, you would see, abc.com exactly mimic what's on the Search Engine Roundtable. Now, this is a bug. It shouldn't happen. But it does seem like the URL inspection tool could do that here and there. I don't think it's a major bug. It seems like some sites have this issue, and it's kind of a spammy issue. Google's testing a new design for mobile Sitelinks, kind of showing snippets and descriptions, at least one-line descriptions in those Sitelinks for some examples. So I show you a screenshot over here so you could see it. Google posted a video, Aurora from Google posted a video on traffic fluctuations and what to watch out for. Specifically, she went into a bunch of things that around not just organic search using her persona Organica, but also the monetized side in terms of watching out for AdSense violations or AdWords violations, but also dug into Search Console performance reports, big changes and where to spot them and so forth. Definitely a good video for any publisher or anybody trying to monetize their websites to look at. And finally, Martin Split said that Google is working on their upcoming virtual events, bunch of events as well as their virtual conference. I think the virtual conference should be next month, but he hasn't confirmed that. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Of course, XMX has a bunch of shows lined up for this year. I think 6 virtual conferences this year. So please support XMX as well. It's been a very challenging year for conferences, as you can imagine, and hopefully, things will settle down soon as people get their vaccinations and so forth. Thank you so much for listening to the Search Buzz video recap. Thank you so much, SEMrush, for sponsoring. I do appreciate it. If you are interested in sponsoring, hit me up. And that is the search news we covered up at Search Engine Roundtable at seroundtable.com. My name again is Barry Schwartz. Today is Friday, January 15th. Everyone have a safe, healthy, and fun weekend. See you guys next week. Bye.